Welcome, everyone. This is our final webinar of the semester. We are offering a little advice on the financial aid aspect of graduate school. Titled it funnily right here, Get the Dough. We're going to give you some advice on how to navigate your way through this um, financial aid aspect, because I know it's a lot of worry for students. They've already taken on undergraduate debt, and whether or not they want to do that for grad school is definitely on their mind. So I'm going to cover some general aspects about financial aid at the grad level, and then we'll have some students come on in later to talk about what they thought about through the process and taking offers from other schools and what was important for them. So we will get rolling. Just remember, you've got some opportunities to either send us some chat questions, or at the end of the presentation, we'll also be taking some questions that you can just unmute and ask us. So to get started, we're going to talk a little bit about the people here. So your presenters is myself, Catherine Meyer, Director of Admissions and Recruitment here at the Bush School. I work with Ashley Treadway, also in admissions. She will be manning the chat section, and occasionally you might hear her pop on with some questions that need to be answered verbally, or to remind me of some aspects that I might have skipped over. And then our two students that will be joining us is Dylan Armstrong and Emily Holland, two current second-year students who can talk about some different aspects of funding that they were going through. And I'll come back to this page when we get to them, so that if you do want to do some follow-up by looking at their email addresses and contacting them, you can do that. So the agenda is going to talk generally about applying for aid, the types of aid that's available. I've got some resources. Obviously, there's a lot of things out there that you can Google, pull up, but I'll give you at least a starting point of some things to think about, and look through some common websites that I've utilized over the years. And then we'll get to that student advice section. So we'll start with the fact that these careers that we are focused upon at the Bush School of Government and Public Service are public service minded careers. So they're very rewarding for students. They're coming into a pathway that maybe they started from the get-go of interest in volunteering and giving back to society in a number of different ways through either their churches or activities at their school with clubs and organizations. Um, but they don't know necessarily how to spin that into a career that's more lucrative. And I don't know that you necessarily will. Not that these are careers that you can't make a nice paycheck. You certainly can. And a lot of that depends on where you're located and the type of activities that you're doing in a career aspect. But you've got to think about the types of career you're going into, and realizing the pathway needs to make sense, and how much debt that you can incur in order to pay that back with a salary that's upcoming. So the interdisciplinary fields I've kind of presented here on this slide, you can prepare for a number of career paths, right? And there's a number of these listed: communications and public relations, development and conflict resolution, and education, whether that's going back and teaching in the classroom or working on policy areas, security and intelligence, science and technology, nonprofits. All of these are jobs that are giving back to society in some way. And some of them, as you move through the ranks of that field, you can make a nice salary and you can support a family. But you do have to consider what you're willing to take on and where you're going to be located, and the kind of starting salary you need to have for that location, the kind of benefits packets that you're going to be getting at a particular job, the career trajectory for this. Is this a job that you can move up? And you got to think about all these aspects as you're thinking on the front end of grad school and where you need to start. So we're going to talk about graduate education costs. It is a huge investment of time and money, but you're investing in yourself in this. So you have to realize sometimes, in order to make those next steps and take that forward and make the connections to get your foot in the door into a particular career field, sometimes that is a school that can help you make those contacts. It's getting the education and skill sets to knock off the other applicant so that you're the one who's chosen. So you have to keep in mind that this is an investment. You are probably going to end up taking on debt. It's great if you're the fortunate few that can receive a full ride, but those are hard to get. And remember, you're going into a career path that's competitive with um, a number of different pathways. And so you got to be able to consider all the, what are my costs going to be on the front end? And are you ready for that commitment? Because you want to have that mindset going in. So the tuition for a master's can run, I would say, anywhere around $10,000 for some of the public universities, up to $50,000 plus per year. And that's just the tuition and maybe the fees. Um, Sometimes the fees are included, sometimes you got to do those separately. Here at Texas A&M, when we do tuition, it usually rolls in the fees with it, but that's not always the case at every school. So you've got to think on top of that, the housing that you're going to be paying for, the book costs, if there are some, a lot of those are online resources now, the food costs, the cost of relocation, travel and commuting, the incidentals of whether you're going to have a car or not. So you've got to be ready for that commitment, and where do you feel like that line is drawn and taking on more debt? So graduate aid is packaged differently from undergrad. Regardless of your income and assets, you just have to keep in mind that you may qualify for aid in the form of loans, and those will come with competitive interest rates. But you will have to start paying those back after graduation. So I would apply for the aid as a backup, regardless if you think you need it or not. That way you're already approved for it. You can go in and get it should an emergency situation come up. Should you not get that GA position that you were really hoping for, you've got something in your back pocket to still be able to pay your bills. And you at the grad level are usually tagged as independent at that point. So you need to keep in mind that you're going to be tagged higher need because you're no longer dependent on your family financial aid. So in that consideration, you are going to be qualified for more loans. Now, whether or not you want to take them on is up to you, but it's, again, best to have that lined up already ahead of time. Now, many of the grad schools, when you apply for them, are awarding merit-based awards. There are some need-based, and we'll talk about the distinctions between these in a second. But you've got to keep in mind that academic factors many times will play a role in those merit awards. So keep in mind whether a GPA means that you also need to turn in a GRE. We're seeing more and more that the admissions offices are waiving the GRE requirement or waiving it with a certain GPA level. And so if you don't feel a GRE test is something that plays to your strengths, maybe you want to opt out on it that year and then decide if, studying for it and then trying to turn that in, find out from the school if that does qualify you at a different level for some scholarship that you wouldn't be able to qualify if you didn't have it based off strictly your GPA. So as you're comparing schools and talking to them and looking at websites, you need to be very clear in what does your financial aid package cover? Are they going to cover all of your needs? So for instance, if you are receiving a $10,000 scholarship, well, what is the cost of your school? Is it 50,000? Is it 15,000? That makes a big difference on what your leftover to pay the bills is. So just make sure that you understand what that package is covering. And it may not be that what you're receiving is all the FAFSA and the financial aid that student financial aid may be giving you. It's probably just what the school is offering in terms of their GA positions, grad assistants, scholarship, fellowship. So again, be careful that you're asking the right questions and making sure that, is this just from my school or department, or is this the whole aid package that's also including maybe financial aid and loans that they can give? So look at those types of distinctions as you're comparing, and then keep in mind that there is an order of financing that you want to consider. And first and foremost, as we all would think, free money is the best option. And those are the scholarships and the grants that you are just given money based off your criteria. The second order of financing is the earned money. And that can be the work study that you might be able to qualify. It's also the GA positions, the grad assistants. Now they come with a lot of different names. Here at the Bush School, we use what are called GARS and GANTs. That's grad assistant research and grad assistant non-teaching. But I've also heard of GATs, which are grad assistant teaching assistants. And there's other names. So find out if there are those types of positions. Are they good for 1 year, 2 years? Can they be renewed? And that's the money that you earn because you're working for it, usually somewhere around the 20-hour a week mark. And then the final one that you want to do is the borrowed money. Those are taking out the student loans that you know you have to repay once you graduate, and find out what kind of interest rate is tied to those. So when you're applying for aid and you're a domestic applicant, right, because these are federal based. So domestic applicants, you need to get your FAFSA filled out and submitted. And so if you did this for undergrad, you already understand the timeline and expectations, but if this is new for you, you submit it by the spring that you're to receive the financial aid, but you can obviously submit it even into the fall. So for example, if someone's applying right now for a program that starts in fall of 21, that FAFSA is already open. It opens around that October 1st deadline. And it is good until March 15th, I believe is the final. So that gives you a number of months to get your financial aspects in order to submit it and fill out all the paperwork that they require for it. But you do have to log on and create a federal student aid ID. And then when you do that, you can then access your personal records and electronically sign your documents. And it's much faster to be able to do that and submit it electronically so that you can get a student aid report, which is a recap of all the info you submitted. And then you can get that back within a couple of days compared to what could be weeks or a month if you're mailing it. And then schools can then start looking to see about what kind of aid eligibility that you have. And that includes maybe some of their internal grants and awards that might be different than even than the financial aid, federal government aid. So when they're determining need, this is just a kind of a recap of the student financial aid side. They're looking at expected family contributions. So a lot of times you'll see the question of how much money do you think your parents will contribute, which might have been something at the undergrad level. But a lot of times we hear at the grad level, you know, mom and dad helped me at the undergrad, or I got through some scholarships, but at the grad level, I'm on my own. And if that's the case, now you need to start figuring out, okay, that's a zero contribution from other family. What kind of income do I have? Am I working a part-time job? Do I have some savings that I can pull from? And so your need is determined by that expected family contribution. And that calculates into the kind of income you're bringing in, the investments, your household size, which might be just one, and any other aspects for that. So there's a little bit of information here that talks about cost of attendance, and then you're subtracting your expected family contribution to get your financial need. And then if you're not allowed to receive aid that exceeds their cost of attendance, so you have to make sure that you're reporting any outside scholarships. So if someone's being sponsored by, let's say, a company that they're working for, or an outside scholarship, for instance, Pickering and Wrangell, people can apply for those in the fall. And if they're granted those in December and January for future State Department type of work, then they need to report those scholarships to financial aid. That way, that office can come back to see what extra do you still not have covered that you need to take out loans to do. They don't want you coming out, taking out 20s of thousands of dollars if there's no need for it, because you're affecting your future on money that hopefully you can try to find in other ways, maybe working your way through school. So when comparing your aid packages, just ensure you're comparing the total cost of attending that school, not just the total financial aid awarded. So keep in mind what your housing cost is going to be. Keep in mind what it's like to live in that location that you are, and make sure you have enough money coming in that can pay both your tuition and fees and that living expenses. So the types of financial aid are covered in a number of different ways, but we're going to talk about federal, state, institutional, and private kind of as that basis. And so you're going to be a combination of scholarships, grants, loans, and work study for the most part. So need-based aid, some schools will offer scholarships for this, commonly granted in the form of work study, grants, and student loans, right? So you have to complete some kind of application or FAFSA that they can then determine how much money you have coming in. The non-need-based aid includes the merit-based awards, and this is what the Bush School commonly uses. And this is going to be for any type of um, aid that we are given based off, your merit scores, your experiences, and being able to determine this person is going to receive a $10,000 scholarship versus this student that we want to admit, but we don't think is quite as competitive, and maybe they get a $5,000 scholarship. So non-need-based aid, at least on the federal side of this, is commonly granted as non-subsidized government loans. So these are those needs that you need to go back through financial aid to cover anything that those scholarships didn't cover. So Stafford loans, the Grad Plus loans, just keep in mind, you got to pay attention to which ones are accruing interest versus not accruing interest while you're in school. And that's the difference between unsubsidized and subsidized. So if you can find a subsidized loan, take that first, because that means the government is paying your interest. Anything that's unsubsidized is just accruing the interest on the outside, and you will have to go back and pay all of that later. So unsubsidized loans, you're responsible for the interest during in-school and deferment periods. Payment is automatically postponed until you're no longer enrolled, at least half time, which for most that's a 6 hours is usually at least a part-time. And then interest accrues the entire time, but you've got to pay it back once you get that 6-month grace period when you graduate, or if you stop school for some reason, you are expected to pay those back. I was just looking to see what the interest ranges are, and it looks like a fall of 20 grad rate for professional is about a 4.3%. So that's a pretty good interest rate that you can get. And then if it's a Grad Plus loan, it's running about 5.3%. So that's much better if you've been looking at, well, I'm just going to put on my credit card. Those are much more expensive. So keep in mind, loans that you can get through your student financial aid office is going to be a lot better than putting anything on a credit card. So back to that free money, all right? Before we have to talk about the loans in this, let's talk about what can I qualify for in scholarships. These are funds that you do not have to pay it back, but you have to meet certain eligibility criteria, and it can be on or off campus funds. So for instance, we offer Texas A&M Bush School scholarships to everyone who applies. And so that is money we're giving to students because we want them to have a little something where they don't feel crushed in debt and having to work while they're in school to the extent of paying off all their bills. So we're going to give them some scholarship to help. Typical average for that is about $5,000. But in addition to that, they can also apply for some scholarships at Texas A&M. And in this case, there's one I've mentioned here, a non-resident student who holds a competitive university scholarship, right, can come in, and if you're given $1,000 or more, you can receive an in-state tuition waiver. And so what this means is someone who's coming from Ohio or from California, if they're given a scholarship from us, which we are granting, then they can also receive that non-resident tuition waiver. And that's giving them access to about a $12,000 waiver that takes from an out-of-state cost and putting them now at Texas resident costs. So instead of over $25,000 in tuition and fees for the year, they're looking at just over $13,000 for the year in cost. So that's kind of a scholarship, and you got to keep that in mind. And so we are able to offer both these waivers and scholarships, and other schools will do that as well. So you got to ask the questions. There are also what are called assistantships and fellowships. So the assistantships is basically someone who comes in, and some schools grant those in your first year. We only do it to students for our second year, mainly because we don't want them working in their first year so they can get acclimated and involved in their first year studies and not trying to balance that with the 20 hours per week. But these are appointments for either teaching or research or non-teaching examples for that. For instance, I have a GA who's a GANT, a non-teaching one. Most of those require 20 hours per week, and then you're getting a salary each month that comes in for you. And so you also can look at whether or not they come with insurance benefits, which again is a great relief just in not having to pay that insurance on top of everything else that you're required. So at the Bush School, as I note here, GA positions are only available in year 2, and they're based on your first year Bush School grades and your fit. So you've got to do well in your first year to qualify for those. Fellowships vary across campus, and it varies across different schools across the nation. But ordinarily, fellowship holders are not required to work, and then you can sometimes receive those non-resident tuition waivers too. So at A&M, packages vary from 1,000 up to 29,000 are the ones that we typically work with. And some include funds for health insurance and tuition and fees. Just note on these fellowships of whether or not it's something you can apply for directly, or if it's something that the school has to nominate you for, or if there's a separate application that you need to be filling out. In the case of the Bush School, right now, we still have it where we are considering all the students who apply, and we make nominations for the particular fellowships that are granted. So there's no way for a student to apply directly for them at this time. We may change that in the coming year or two because there are some new scholarships coming up that we might like to have you apply for separately with an essay to support it. But for now, uniquely for us, it's you apply through your application just to the Bush School itself for admission, and then we consider you for the number of different scholarships and fellowships that are available. So another aspect of this is work study, and this is part-time employment either on or off campus with an employer who participates in the program. But again, you got to go through FAFSA and through financial aid in order to see if that's something that you could qualify for. I don't know of a lot of students that have done this. Grants is a little more common. These are funds that do not have to be repaid, but usually require meeting some kind of financial need requirement. So again, you got to get that FAFSA in. And at Texas A&M, we do offer what's called a Texas Aggie Graduate Grant. So as long as you're receiving less than $10,000 and you are a Texas resident, you could apply for that graduate grant separately. And it is something that we will make a post about to our students, incoming students and returning students, to remind them that that deadline is upcoming and to submit it if they're interested, because there is some paperwork on the back end of that of getting approval for it. And then as far as loans go, I mentioned this before, but this is borrowed money that has to be repaid, usually after you graduate or leave the university. So many do have low interest rates. You are completing FAFSA to get them, and you just need to pay attention that there are limits to this. They did set up that you cannot borrow more than $20,000 for an unsubsidized loans per year. And the max total that they'll let you bring on for debt is $138,000. So you don't ever want to take out that much debt. And then maybe that'll make you sound a little better when we talk about our students and the kind of loans that they may be taking. We're not expecting anyone to come close to that for that max total debt. 30,000 maybe, 20,000 maybe. Sometimes it's a little more just depending on the housing situation for students, but it's definitely something that you need to do some Googling on. And I've given you some websites in just a few minutes. But the National Consumer Law Center provides information about the repayment options and maybe even consolidating and how to deal with collection agencies. So you can go to studentloanborrowassistance.org. It's got some great information there. Now, one that I have heard over and over, and I think is very popular for students, and can be honest with you, I don't know the status of where it is, because this public service loan forgiveness is a great option. And let me just read what this is for you. This is a program that forgives the remaining balance for any direct loans that you've taken after you've made 10 years of qualifying payments. But you have to be set up in that qualifying repayment plan. You have to be working full time, for an employer who is on their list. And so there's a number of different aspects that have to work and check off the boxes to make sure that you can submit this employment certification to qualify for it. And if you miss a payment, if you move jobs and don't get the new paperwork in, then it means that you're ineligible for it. So there's been a lot of unhappy people who thought that they were qualifying, who came back out and said, this is a jinx, this doesn't work. So I've heard in the past different presidents coming through, different organization leaders that were going to get this thing just pulled out. It's not working, but I think it still is in play. I just never know in the news what's real and what's not, if this is still going to be supported. So public service work is the kind of work our students are going to do. So it makes a lot of sense for you to look at this. But it includes things like nonprofits, government at any level, state, local, federal, any of them, military, public school, and most college employment. So coming to work for a university, doing something like what I do, you could qualify if your university is set up for that. And then you've got national and international service participation like AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, if you're working full time for them. So definitely utilize this website, the studentaid.ed.gov, and look to see what is involved in the public service loan forgiveness, and at least keep it in mind, and then follow through different articles and updates to see if it's still in play and something that you can take advantage of. Another one that has come out was the income-based repayment plan. And this was to cap the type of loan payments that were based on your income and family size, so that you didn't come out with a family with crushing debt and then you had to then pay more than what you could afford on your repayment. So this says that the loan repayments will be less than 10% of your income. So they will also forgive remaining debt, but now it's 25 years of qualifying payments. I hate to think of having to pay a student loan for 25 years, but for some, I guess that's a reality. So you can check out more information for there at the income-based repayment website. And it's up to you to access the programs and keep track of your payments and employment records, because you do have to prove your eligibility and you do have to be signed up for it. So I'm going to take just a moment and plug the Bush School for just a second about our scholarships and awards. And I've mentioned these before in other ones, other presentations that we have, but just remembering every student who applies to our MPSA and MIA programs that can include the MIA MPH. It does not include the MIP, which doesn't offer funding for the one-year program. And it's not going to include necessarily what I'm referring to for any of the online programs. They have their own set of financial aid. So you'll have to work with our Office of Extended Ed for that. What I'm referencing is the MPSA and MIA type of scholarships. If you are admitted to those two programs, you will receive some level of financial aid in the form of a scholarship as long as you are a full-time student. So that's 9 hours or more. Our students typically take 12 hours or more, usually 12 hours, and you are receiving some level of scholarship aid. It ranges for Bush School scholarships from about $3,000 to $15,000. But some of those other fellowships that I mentioned earlier that you can qualify for based on nomination by our faculty, those are given primarily through the university. And those can be worth $29,000 or $30,000. We also have some that are set up through a separate organization that works with our donors. Robertson Fellowships is one. And those are also a full ride type of offer that is somewhere around the 30,000 mark per year. It's close to that. And then there are also Texas A&M scholarships and financial aid, and any outside awards that you guys can qualify and look for. But we always encourage people to go to the Texas A&M Student Financial Aid website, go to the graduate section, look at the outside scholarship part. International students can also look at International Student Services and look to see what they offer. Sometimes those are qualified by different countries. But keep in mind, there's over 10,000 students here internationally that also are competing for some of these scholarships. So you just have to have a lot of feelers out and apply for anything that you think could net you something. The Texas Aggie Graduate Grant was the one I mentioned earlier that our students who receive less than 10,000 can apply for. But you do have to go through financial aid for that. And I believe it's worth about 1,500 both in the fall and again in the spring. So that kind of thing is available to help too. And then if you are a military returning student, they kind of set up for that with your family. Texas A&M Veterans Services also has some resources to find out how you can use your benefits for the Yellow Ribbon Program, for the Hazelwood Act, any of those, you can work with them and through financial aid to utilize those benefits. So the aid advice I want to end up here with this is apply for financial aid early, either alongside or shortly after you submit your admissions application, because some schools will distribute the first come, first served, can't say this, first come, first served basis. And that includes the things that include the GA positions, the grants, the work studies, lower interest loans. So get that stuff in closer to the October, November, December, and try not to wait until March. Even if you decide you don't go to that university, it's better to have done some of the paperwork on the back end ahead of time. Research and apply for as much free money as you can, even if it does make you ineligible for loans, because you don't need the loans if you have free money. So it's just less debt you have to worry about. Sometimes you can ask schools to waive application fees. It never hurts to ask. That could save you $100 or more. We do not waive unless someone qualifies through an organization. But that's mainly because I have to pay it out of my admissions funding money. And so I've already set aside my budget with what I can pay. And we've been maxing out every year and over with just the ones that qualify through AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, PPIA, some of the organizations we partner with. And then report any changes to your financial situation to the financial aid office. So they're going to have to adjust your package for that need base. So generally, they're going to try to get rid of your worst loans first and keep your unsubsidized, your subsidized for you if they can. So get all that paperwork done. It's never a bad thing to do. And then I've got 2 pages of some resources that I think are very helpful. One that I ran across years ago is one that was a person who has a career of financial aid and works with students in college. And she's got a great website. It's called askheatherjarvis.com. And her tools have a lot of different resources. So I would literally go to her page and start. And then she's got a lot of some of the repeat of what I'm presenting here as well. But there's some videos, there's some web links. It doesn't cost you anything to go to her website and look around for it. I don't know if she has a section where you could pay, but I've enjoyed just going through and learning more about expectation. Another one that's helpful is an organization that we work with called idealist.org. And it has a section in there under the grad school resources when you dig around, or just use this link right here. And it is funding your future. So it's, again, having you think through some of these resources. And it may be where I found the Heather Jarvis one years and years ago. Another great website is the APSIA website. That stands for the Association of Professional Schools and International Affairs. And it's got a listing. I didn't update this one, sorry. It says here 79 fellowships and scholarships. I think it's over 90 now that they list. And they're relevant to many of the career paths that our students are looking for, either in public service or international affairs. So go through their scholarships that are listed. It's at the top section, just pull down menu for it, and then apply for the ones that are of interest to you. And then a lot of the information about federal student aid is just that studentaid.ed.gov that I referenced earlier. It has a lot of helpful aspects about the graduate funding and what you can find and what you need to be thinking about when taking out loans and applying for these types of resources. And then there's coming up, obviously, a lot more of these apps, these mobile apps that you can get. Now, I haven't vetted any of these. These are some of the ones that I was Googling and finding that were utilized and helpful. I was familiar with myscholly.com. I have heard a number of people and other recruiters reference it. The other two I'm not as familiar with. And I know there's a lot more out there, but these are helpful apps that can help you find scholarships by helping you keep track of what's out there, which ones you might qualify for, which ones you did already apply for. There may be some fee cost associated with some of them. You just need to see if it's not too expensive, it's $20. $20 to help you find thousands of dollars may not be such a bad idea. But those kinds of things, you just need to start researching and figuring it out because there is money out there. It's a matter of being matched and finding it because you want some options other than just your department or your school providing it, if possible. So just keep those things in mind. So I'm going to now pull back and jump to the students information because I'm going to have Dylan and here we go, and Emily talk about their experiences. So Dylan and Emily, if you guys want to unmute and give you a brief introduction of yourself and where you come from and some of the things that you thought about while looking at grad school and maybe taking on more debt and what that feels like.
Thanks, Catherine. Howdy, everybody. My name is Dylan Armstrong. I am Catherine's Gant. I'm originally from Ohio. So when it came time to apply for grad school, the financial side of things was very important to me because I knew there was a good chance I would end up moving. So cost of living and cost of attendance were very important when I was going through my search for graduate programs. And when going through and deciding what schools to apply for, pretty much just compared top ranked programs and who I thought would give me money based upon my GPA, my GRE score, and my background. I did utilize that one of the websites that Catherine had mentioned, My Scholly. I had really good success with it in undergrad. I thought it was an extremely beneficial resource, and I found it to be very worth I think it was $8 or $9 that the service costs for a lifetime membership. So I found that very helpful. But here at the Bush School, as an out-of-state student, I do have the in-state tuition waiver, which is something that's really nice. And I would recommend, regardless of where you end up, if you are attending a public school, that is something that you should be looking for if you're an out-of-state student. In addition, I did get, as every Bush School student gets, a Bush School scholarship. And then the decision coming in my first year was whether I wanted to work or whether I wanted to take out loans to cover cost of living and what wasn't covered by my scholarship. I decided that I did not want to work my first year and decided to take on the more debt with the goal of getting a graduate position my second year. So I did take out loans. I decided to go actually the private route for loans instead of the public route, and pretty much use that, just as I said, cost of living and the little bit of tuition that my scholarship did not cover. And I was fortunate enough to be able to get a graduate position, so I did not take out loans this year. I was smart and worked over the summer, or fortunate and worked over the summer, so to cover my tuition that wasn't covered by my scholarship. And yeah, that's kind of what my thought process was when it came to the financial aid side of things. I'm going to turn it over to Emily now.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. My name is Emily Holland, and I am also on the MPSA track, and I'm getting a concentration in nonprofit management. I kind of thought about the same things Dylan did. I kind of had a pros cons list between top ranked affordability and then what lines up with my resources that I have. I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer. So if anyone has done that or has connections to AmeriCorps, you know that they provide funds for school, and resettlement funds is kind of how I was able to move. I'm from Texas, and so I got to bypass a lot of those moving funds. But yeah, so I use my Peace Corps resettlement fund. I'm fortunate my dad was a service member, so I get to utilize the Hazelwood Act. So if any of you have parents who were service members in Texas, I would really look into that with the Veterans Affairs. It's a really great program. And then I also received the Bush School Scholarship. So opposite of Dylan, I am actually choosing to work throughout my undergraduate. So my first semester, GAR and GAMP positions weren't available. So I waited tables for a little bit. I worked at the public library and kind of just worked odd jobs that fit with my time schedule, and I was able to manage, which was difficult, but also I kind of just made it work. And then my second semester, I now am a graduate assistant at the AgriLife Extension Office. So there's a limited number of GAR and GAMP positions at the Bush School, but it's something that you want to do. The university is huge. I know several people work at the MSC building. The university is pretty nice to graduate students, so I was able to get a job in a different college, and I still get the same benefits. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
I do want to comment really quickly because Emily, you mentioned about getting your GA position outside of the school, and I do want to clarify something. One of the unique aspects about our funding is that if you become a GA here at the Bush School, then whatever funding you were given in the form of a Bush School scholarship, you give that up, and instead you are just now working as the GA position and receiving those funds, because you can't double dip on Bush School funding. But Emily had gone outside of Bush School, so her GA position, she gets to keep not only the GA payment, but she's also keeping her Bush School scholarship. So that is something we do encourage students to do, is to go look and see what else is out there. And Emily, did you find that one based off your own research, or did someone recommend it?
Yeah, so it was recommended to me. I have some good friends who work in this building, and then Aggie Jobs is also a really great resource if you're looking for on-campus jobs.
That's good. I forgot to mention that one earlier, but yes, Jobs for Aggies.
Jobs for Aggies, that's what it is, yeah.
Once you're a student here, you can log on to the system and start searching for all kinds of student work positions and GA positions across the university.
I will say that Jobs for Aggies also has a lot of city jobs. So when I worked at the public library, I found that through there. There's a lot of local jobs as well.
So what are some other aspects, Dylan, or Emily, for you too, in thinking about taking on debt and repayment afterwards? What are just some things that you were thinking about when you were comparing schools?
I'll say one thing I looked at with, I think part of it's like that investment in yourself, and that I had faith that the schools that I had applied to would be able to put me in a position that taking on this additional debt would be worth it. I'll say I specifically looked at job placement rates of different programs, and also what sectors they were going to ensure that getting a degree here from the Bush School and at Texas A&M would be able to get me where I want to go, and in that area have a salary that would be able to make taking on this additional debt financially worth it. I'll also say College Station, Bryan, this community is an extremely affordable community. That was something else that made me willing to take on the additional debt to cover the cost of living. Is it's not like we were in a major metropolitan area where the cost of housing is extremely high. Rent is very affordable here. So I knew while taking on debt isn't ideal, it's not like I was taking on an additional astronomical amount compared to my undergrad.
Yeah, I would agree with Dylan. I think it's a cost benefit analysis that you have to apply to your own personal situation. I think something that's appealing about A&M is the Aggie network. I'm from Texas, and so I've grown up around Aggies, and they're a really close-knit community. And so I felt comfortable investing in the university because I've seen other Aggies, and I've seen how well the university networks, which I think is a plus when you think about getting out of graduate school and looking for a job, and kind of makes you feel a little bit better.
So there's a question that has come up in the chat that says, is there a health insurance plan available specifically for Texas A&M students, or do students usually find health insurance in the marketplace? I know that we provide information in the summer before entry that is a Texas A&M health insurance plan that students can sign up for. So there is something specific for that. I don't know, maybe Dylan and Emily, I don't know if you realize how many might pick something outside of that. But I'm familiar, we do have something.
I know a lot of the GARs and GANTs here at the Bush School either are, I would say, are either still fortunate enough to be able to be on their parents' insurance still, or use the Texas A&M, like their graduate worker insurance. Because I've been told it's a very good plan. I'm fortunate enough to be with my parents still, but that's kind of the insights I have on that. If you have anything to add, Emily.
Yeah, my knowledge is kind of at the same place as yours. I do know that it is offered through the university if you are a student employee, but other than that, I'm not sure.
And it is available as well to students outside of that. It's just that additional cost, but yes, it exists. All right, and here's the second question. Is there any possibility for an incoming graduate student to get a GA position after a semester? Not that I'm aware, no. They reserve those for second year students, unless you are getting something outside of the university. But again, that's all about timing. And I don't know that a lot of positions come available in the middle of a semester. It's a possibility. I wouldn't rule it out necessarily. But at least here at the Bush School, it has to be within your second year.
I would say to look through the different the different colleges within the university. I had several colleagues of mine apply for GANT positions, like in the College of Innovation, or like different programs, like the Aggie Green Grant hires new, maybe not under the title graduate assistant, but sort of job positions that are on par with that. Yeah, I think it's possible to find them, but you'll have to spread a wide net.
Yeah, that's definitely my understanding as well. But I can remember throughout the first year, and even that first semester, a little later on, so it'd be starting in January, different offices and organizations hiring graduate assistant and specifically looking for graduate students for different student jobs. So there are opportunities on campus as well, even if it's not an official graduate assistant position.
So I didn't see any other chat questions, but I do want to open it up. If there is anybody that just wants to unmute and ask a question, you are free to do that right now. And we'll sit quietly for a few seconds. Doesn't seem like there's anybody that wants to talk. So I'll just end with this, with Dylan and Emily. Is there any last minute advice or things that you think that students need to think about as they are choosing? And then we'll wrap up with that.
I would just say, when it comes to scholarships, apply to as many as you possibly can. Even if it's, say a $500 scholarship and it takes you 2 hours to apply for it, the cost benefit of that comes out pretty high. Apply to as many as you can, and make sure you look at employment statistics for schools you're interested in, because you want to make sure you're getting a degree somewhere that sends its graduates to places you want to work. Emily, do you have anything?
Yeah, I agree. I think just applying to everything available is important. I also think it's important to see what resources are specific to you, whether that being like going in state or being able to afford going out of state. I think kind of just reading the fine print and understanding what different universities have to offer.
Okay. That sounds great. And there's just a lot of great information out there in those different website links that I provided. So do a little bit of homework, spend some time applying to what you can. Remember, a couple of hours for maybe $500, like Dylan said, goes a long way when you're making $10 an hour at a job. So you can spend that time putting that. Eventually something hopefully will come through and give you some payback for it. So I hope this was informative. I hope this gives you a little bit to think about as you're comparing some financial aid options for the grad school. But that is going to be it for us today. And we thank you for your time. And if you need us for anything, just remember Ashley and I are available for your direct questions, something specific we can answer at that bushkilladmissions@tamu.edu. And our phone number is 979-862-3476. So thank you guys very much. Enjoy your day.